Now I have all the information I need to write a comprehensive, accurate, and engaging script. Let me craft the full script. 53 points. Just let that number sit in your brain for a second. 53. In a single basketball game. One player, one night, one moment that nobody in that building, nobody watching at home, was ever going to forget. And here's the wild part. She didn't even know she was doing it. She had no idea how many points she had. There's no scoreboard at Coca-Cola Coliseum that shows individual stats. She was just out there in a zone, a place athletes talk about but rarely actually reach, where the basket looked as wide as a swimming pool, and every shot felt like it was already going in before it even left her hand. She wasn't chasing history. She was just playing basketball. And somewhere in between, history came to her. This is the story of June 25th, 2026. The night Marina Mabrey, nicknamed Money Mabrey, walked into an arena as one of the most underrated players in women's basketball history and walked out having her name tied to the greatest scoring record the WNBA has ever seen. This is the story of a girl from New Jersey who grew up battling her brothers and sisters for respect on a driveway court, who got passed over, traded, shuffled around, doubted, overlooked, and kept coming back, until one Thursday night in Toronto, she showed the entire world what she had been trying to say all along. And the most mind-bending part of all of this? She almost broke the record. She was right there. 56 was right in front of her. 2 more minutes on the clock, the score already a blowout, the crowd chanting her name. And then it was over. So buckle in. Because this story has everything. The family rivalries that built her, the trades that tested her, the international journeys that sharpened her, the expansion team that bet everything on her, and the night she nearly rewrote WNBA history forever. Let's go back to the beginning. Belmar, New Jersey is a small beach town on the Jersey Shore. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where the summers are loud and salty, and the winters go quiet. It's not exactly a basketball hotbed. It's not a city that typically produces WNBA legends. But in a house in Belmar, there was a family that ate, breathed, and slept basketball, and that family was going to change everything. Roy Mabrey Sr. played Division II college basketball at St. Anselm College. He understood the game at a deep level. His wife, Patty, coached youth basketball for more than 20 years. She was also a referee. These two people built a home where basketball wasn't just a sport, it was the language the family spoke. Their 5 kids grew up inside that language every single day. Marina was born on September 14, 1996. She was the middle child, not the oldest, not the youngest, just the middle. And if you know anything about middle children in competitive families, you know exactly what that means. You have to fight for everything. You have to be louder, faster, smarter, tougher. You can't wait for opportunities. You have to create them. Her older brother Roy and her older sister Michaela were the ones who first pulled Marina into basketball. They'd go to their mother's practices, and then they'd play. On the driveway, at the local park, in the backyard. Every single day. And it was always intense. This wasn't casual shooting around. This was war. Friendly war, sure, but war. Marina described those sessions with her siblings as the foundation of her entire competitive edge. Every single day she would go out there and try to beat her brother and sister one-on-one. Every single day. She might lose 9 times. She might get dunked on, get crossed over, get her shot blocked into the neighbor's yard. But the next day, she was back out there. That relentlessness, that absolute refusal to stay down was being baked into her DNA. And it wasn't just Roy and Michaela. Her sisters Michaela and Dara would both go on to play basketball at Notre Dame too. The Mabrey family wasn't just a basketball family. They were a basketball dynasty. A homegrown, Jersey Shore dynasty that nobody outside of New Jersey knew about yet. By the time Marina got to Manasquan High School, it was already clear she was something special. She wasn't just good. She was the kind of good that makes other coaches nervous. The kind of good that makes kids from other schools show up just to watch. She helped lead Manasquan to 2 state tournament of champions titles, 2 of them, and she was so impressive on the national stage that she was named co-MVP of the McDonald's All-American Game in 2015. The McDonald's All-American Game. That's the mountaintop for high school basketball. That's where the absolute best players in the country, the ones who are going to go on to become stars in college and pros, come to show what they can do. And Marina Mabrey walked in there and walked out as a co-MVP. Colleges all over the country wanted her. Every major program in America was putting her name at the top of their boards. She could have gone anywhere. But there was a pull that was hard to ignore. Her sister Michaela was at Notre Dame. Their mom had connections there. The Fighting Irish women's basketball program under coach Muffet McGraw was one of the most respected programs in the country. And the idea of following her sister, of playing alongside her, of carrying on the family tradition, that meant something. So Marina Mabrey chose Notre Dame. Notre Dame, Indiana. The Golden Dome. The football stadium that holds 100,000 people. The tradition, the weight of the history, the echoes of legends through the hallways. But for the women's basketball program, the pressure was just as real. Muffet McGraw didn't run a recreational program. She ran a program that expected championships, that expected her players to be the best versions of themselves every single time they stepped on the floor. Marina arrived in the fall of 2015 as a freshman, stepping into a program that had just come off a national championship runner-up finish. The team needed to rebuild, needed to find its identity again. And Marina Mabrey, barely 18 years old, walked in and immediately started making noise. In just her fourth college game ever, her fourth career game, she recorded a triple-double at Valparaiso. Points, rebounds, assists. But what made it truly remarkable was that she had 12 steals in that game. 12 steals. In a single college basketball game. That tied for the second most in ACC history. That's not a mistake or a typo. That's the kind of performance that makes coaches and scouts look at each other and say, "What is she?" She was named Rookie of the Week. She was earning all ACC recognition. She was shooting threes, so many threes, and making them at an incredible clip. From day one, the three-point shot was her signature. She had that rare ability to create space, to catch and fire, to step into shots that most players would hesitate on. It was instant. It was almost automatic. Her freshman year, she scored 85 three-pointers. 85. The second most in a single season in Notre Dame's entire history. She was averaging over 10 points a game against some of the best competition in the country. The ACC wasn't forgiving. The competition wasn't taking nights off. And Marina Mabrey wasn't either. The next 2 years brought Notre Dame close, so close, to the top. Elite Eights. Final Fours. Tournament runs that got the whole campus buzzing. But the big moment kept being just out of reach. Marina kept growing. She kept getting better. She was becoming one of the most dynamic perimeter players in all of college basketball, not just the women's game but college basketball, period. And then came her junior year, 2017 to 2018. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish women's basketball team had been through a rash of injuries. Key players were going down. The roster was getting thin. Coach McGraw was having to rely on players to step into bigger roles than they'd been prepared for. Marina, now a junior sharing backcourt duties with Eric Ogunbowl and Jackie Young, had to step up in a massive way. She moved into a more direct point guard role. She handled more ball-handling duties. She had to be everything for a team that was running out of players who were completely healthy. And instead of shrinking under that pressure, Marina Mabrey got bigger. The bigger the moment, the bigger she played. The more the team needed her, the more she delivered. Notre Dame started fighting back. They were doing the impossible, surviving injuries, winning close games, coming back from deficits that seemed insurmountable. There was a comeback against Tennessee, where the Irish were down 23 points. 23 points. Most teams don't come back from 5 down in college basketball, let alone 23. Notre Dame came back. Marina Mabrey was at the heart of it. The tournament run was magical. Game after game, the Irish found ways to win. And then came the national championship game against Mississippi State. The score late in the game, Mississippi State up 58-53 with 1 minute and 35 seconds left. This is where great players define themselves. When the situation is its most dire. When the scoreboard looks its most brutal. When most people on the floor are thinking about how to survive rather than how to win. Marina Mabrey hit a three-pointer. It was Notre Dame's first three-pointer of the championship game. And she hit it when the team needed it the most. That shot helped start a rally. Notre Dame ended up winning 61-58, an improbable, incredible, heart-stopping championship. Marina Mabrey had a national championship ring. She had earned every single stitch of it. That championship ring was more than a piece of jewelry. It was proof. Proof that the girl who grew up battling her siblings on a driveway in Belmar, New Jersey could compete at the absolute highest level and win when it mattered most. She came back for her senior year. Notre Dame wanted to repeat as champions. They went deep into the tournament again, reaching the Final Four before falling to Baylor. But Marina Mabrey had done something remarkable across 4 years at Notre Dame. She had become the program's all-time leader in three-pointers made, 274. The record holder. Out of everyone who had ever played there. All the legendary players in Notre Dame women's basketball history. Marina Mabrey had made more three-pointers than any of them. She graduated in 2019 with 1,896 career points, the 8th most in program history at the time. She shot 81.7% from the free throw line. She was a champion. She was a record holder. She was one of the most accomplished college basketball players in the entire country. And when the 2019 WNBA draft came around, Marina Mabrey was selected 19th overall by the Los Angeles Sparks. Wait, 19th? With that resume? With that championship, those records, that shooting ability? The 19th pick? Yeah. And that's exactly the kind of thing that gets filed away in the brain of a competitor. The kind of thing that doesn't just get forgotten. The kind of thing that gets used as fuel. The WNBA is the best women's basketball league in the world. It is also brutally competitive, brutally hard to break into, and brutally unforgiving of players who don't hit the ground running. The rosters are small. The competition for minutes is fierce. Veteran players guard their roles the way you guard your lunch in a cafeteria full of hungry people. Marina's rookie year with the Los Angeles Sparks was exactly what you'd expect for a 19th pick learning the ropes. She appeared in 31 games, but saw limited minutes. She averaged 4 points a game. She was learning, absorbing the speed of the pro game, understanding what it took, figuring out how to find her spots. But she wasn't getting the runway she needed to truly show what she could do. Then, before the 2020 season, the Sparks traded her to the Dallas Wings. Okay, traded. A whole new city, a whole new team, a whole new set of relationships to build. But here's the thing about Marina Mabrey. She doesn't sit around and feel sorry for herself. She picks up her stuff, and she goes to work. She arrived in Dallas and started proving she belonged in the league. Now, the 2020 season was unlike any other. COVID-19 had changed everything. The WNBA played its entire season in a bubble at IMG Academy in Florida, with no fans, 22 games instead of the usual 34. It was bizarre, isolated, strange. Players were living inside this controlled environment, grinding every day without the energy of a crowd to lift them. But Marina used it. She started to average double digits for the first time in her WNBA career, 10 points a game in the bubble. She had her first 20-point games. She started to establish herself as a real contributor, a real scorer, the shooter the Wings needed and had acquired. Over the next few years with Dallas, Marina kept developing. She was putting up better numbers, becoming a more complete player, building a reputation around the league as a shooter you could not leave open. If you gave her space beyond the arc, she was going to make you pay. Every single time. Then came February 2023 and a 4-team trade that sent her to the Chicago Sky. Chicago. A different challenge. A different roster. A different culture. But Marina took on the new challenge the same way she'd always taken on challenges, head-on. She led the Sky in scoring. She was their most reliable offensive option on a team going through its own transition. She was becoming exactly the kind of reliable professional scorer that teams needed. And then, in July 2024, another trade. This time to the Connecticut Sun. The Connecticut Sun are a perennial contender. A serious team with high expectations, great coaching, and demanding standards. For Marina, it meant competing at a higher level, being part of a playoff-caliber squad, learning what it meant to win at the highest levels of the game every night. In her time with the Sun, she averaged 14.4 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. Career highs across the board. She was growing. She was getting better at an age when many players have already peaked. She was proving something to herself. That she could be great on a great team. That she wasn't just a scorer on a bad team. She was a player who could contribute meaningfully wherever she went. But here's the thing about Marina Mabrey through all of this. All these years, all these teams, all this production, she had never made a WNBA All-Star team. Not once. Coming into 2026, she was one of the most accomplished international players in the world. National championships in Italy, EuroLeague All-Star selections, a league record 47-point game in Unrivaled, but the WNBA mainstream had never fully embraced her. She was talented. She was productive. But she wasn't famous. She wasn't a household name. She was, in the language of basketball, underrated. And then the Toronto Tempo called. Let's talk about what the Toronto Tempo even are, because you can't understand the significance of Marina Mabrey's night without understanding the team she was playing for. In May 2024, the WNBA announced something monumental. For the first time in the league's history, it was expanding internationally. Toronto, Canada, was getting a WNBA team. The 14th franchise. The first team ever to play outside the United States. The Toronto Tempo. Canada already had an enormous love for basketball, largely thanks to the Toronto Raptors, who won the NBA championship in 2019 and had a deeply passionate fan base. The idea of bringing the WNBA to that city, to that country, was electric. Canadian fans had been watching the best women's basketball in the world from across the border for years, cheering for players like Kia Nurse, wishing they could see top-level women's basketball right there at home. Now they were going to get it. The Tempo were owned by Kilmer Sports Ventures, the same organization connected to the Raptors and the Maple Leafs and the Toronto FC soccer team. Larry Tannenbaum, a titan of Canadian sports ownership, was the chairman. The infrastructure, the support, the ambition were all there. This was not going to be some low-budget expansion experiment. This was going to be done the right way. Head coach Sandy Brondello was hired to lead the team. Brondello is one of the most respected coaches in women's basketball, with experience coaching at the highest levels, including leading the Mercury, the Liberty, and the Australian national team. She was not someone who came to take it easy. Then came the expansion draft on April 3, 2026. The Tempo got to select players from other WNBA rosters, building their foundation from scratch. And with their first ever selection, the very first pick in the entire history of the Toronto Tempo franchise, they chose Marina Mabrey from the Connecticut Sun, pick number 1. Then they turned around and signed her to a multi-year deal, a contract worth over $1 million a year, which made Marina Mabrey the first player in WNBA history to sign a contract worth over $1 million in free agency. The first ever. Let that sink in. In a league that had been fighting for decades to get its players paid fairly, in a league where the new collective bargaining agreement had finally started to raise salaries to something approaching what the talent deserved, Marina Mabrey was the first person to cross that $1 million threshold. She responded to the news by saying, "I'm grateful to the people around me for helping me get to this point, and the Toronto Tempo for paying me all that money." And then she laughed and added that she'd better do her job after getting that contract. She wasn't wrong. The Tempo had made a massive bet. A brand new team, a brand new country, and they were building everything around a shooter from New Jersey who had never been an all-star in the WNBA. The pressure was real. Marina Mabrey walked into training camp in Toronto in April 2026 and immediately felt something different. The city was already buzzing. People were wearing Tempo gear in the streets. Fans were recognizing her. A basketball team was coming to a city that had been hungry for this for years, and the electricity in the air was unlike anything Marina had experienced before. "You can feel the buzz in the city," she said during that first camp. "I see people with Tempo things on. A couple of people knew me, which was kind of cool in Canada." The season began in May. The Tempo weren't expected to be great. Expansion teams almost never are. Building a roster from scratch, establishing a culture, getting players to bond and build trust, figuring out your identity. It all takes time. Most expansion teams spend their first few seasons near the bottom of the standings, slowly building toward respectability. But the Tempo were not reading that script. Marina Mabrey came out of the gates blazing. She was scoring, distributing, defending, leading. She and her backcourt partner Brittany Sykes, another veteran who had signed a $1 million deal, were becoming the most dynamic backcourt in women's basketball. They made history just weeks into the season when they became the first pair of teammates in WNBA history to each score 30-plus points in a single game during a franchise's first season. By the time June arrived, Marina was averaging over 21 points a game. Her career average coming into the season was 12.5. She had nearly doubled her output. She was fourth in the entire WNBA in scoring. She was playing the basketball of her life, and the city of Toronto was falling completely, utterly in love with her. On June 19th, just days before her historic night, Marina had a career-best 37 points against the Connecticut Sun, her old team. A career high. The best game of her professional life. But that record was about to have a very short lifespan. June 25th, 2026. A Thursday night in Toronto. The Los Angeles Sparks were coming to town. The Sparks were a storied franchise, one of the oldest and most decorated in WNBA history, but they were going through a transitional period in 2026. They came into this game at 8-9 on the season. The Tempo were also 8-9, sitting right around .500, fighting to establish themselves as a legitimate playoff contender. This was a winnable game for both teams. A game with real stakes. Coca-Cola Coliseum. That's where the Tempo play most of their home games in their inaugural season. A beautiful arena in downtown Toronto that also hosts the Marlies, the minor league affiliate of the NHL's Toronto Maple Leafs. The capacity is around 8,000 for basketball. It's intimate. When the crowd is loud, it sounds like it can hold twice as many people. The energy bounces off the walls and comes back at you. The fans were there. Thousands of them, wearing Tempo gear, carrying signs, ready for another great night of basketball in their new team's first season. It was a homestand game. The Tempo were feeding off the energy of playing at home in front of their city. And in the locker room before the game, something special was happening that nobody else knew about yet. Marina Mabrey's older sister, Michaela, was there. Michaela, the person Marina had battled on the driveway every day growing up, the person she had followed to Notre Dame, her first and fiercest competition, was in the building. Marina would later say, "My sister doesn't get to come see me play that much. Life gets in the way. Schedules don't align. Michaela has her own life, her own basketball engagements. But tonight, she was there. In Toronto. Watching her little sister play. Maybe Marina didn't consciously know what that meant going into the game. But somewhere in the deep part of who she is, where all those driveway battles live, all that want to be great for her family, having Michaela there had to mean something. The game tipped off. Less than 20 seconds in. Less than 20 seconds. Marina Mabrey had the ball on the left wing, caught a pass, stepped back, and hit a mid-range fadeaway jumper. First basket of the game. First points. 2 quick, clinical, effortless points. She was already in her bag. The first quarter belonged to Marina Mabrey in a way that first quarters rarely belong to anyone. She was getting to her spots. She was catching and firing. The three-pointers were going in. The mid-range shots were going in. The drives to the basket were going in. Everything was going in. You know those nights in sports when it seems like a player simply cannot miss? When the basket looks bigger to them than it looks to everyone else on the floor. This was one of those nights. From the very first possession. By the end of the first quarter, Marina Mabrey had 19 points. 19 points in 12 minutes of basketball. That was a franchise record for the tempo, the most points any player had ever scored in a single quarter in the team's short history. It was also her personal career high for a quarter. The Sparks were scrambling. They tried different defenders. They tried to move on her faster. They tried to take away her rhythm. Marina kept scoring. The second quarter continued the onslaught. She was up to 27 points by halftime. 27 points at halftime. At that point, the tempo had a comfortable lead. The Sparks were playing hard. Nneka Ogwumike, one of the most respected veterans in women's basketball history, was trying to keep LA in it, and she and Dearica Hamby were both having solid games. But the tempo were in control. And Marina Mabrey was clearly in a different universe. Now, here's something remarkable about what was happening. Marina had no idea how many points she had. Coca-Cola Coliseum doesn't have a stat display that shows individual scoring totals in real time. She wasn't watching a scoreboard. She was just playing. Just competing. Just doing the things she'd been doing since she was a kid on a driveway in New Jersey. Her teammates were different though. They knew. They were watching. They were counting. And they were doing something extraordinary. They were getting her the ball even when it wasn't always the basketball purist's choice. Julie Allemand, Toronto's Belgian point guard, was orchestrating everything. Allemand is one of the best passers in women's basketball, a player who sees the floor in ways that most humans simply can't. And on this night, she had completely committed herself to one mission. Find Marina Mabrey. Later, Allemand would describe it this way. When you have Marina shooting like that, you just want to pass her the ball. I think Maria got mad at me 3 times during the game because she had an open layup, but I was like, no, sorry, it's not for you tonight. Because Marina was feeling it. She had open layups, sure things, guaranteed points, and she passed them up to swing the ball to Marina out on the 3-point line. That's not just good basketball IQ. That's a level of trust and love for your teammate that goes beyond the tactical. That's Julie Allemand saying, she is the moment tonight, and I'm going to make sure she gets there. Marina described it similarly. When you have teammates that have your back and are literally passing up open layups to pass to you at the 3-point line, that's an elite level of trust that I couldn't be more grateful for. The third quarter brought more of the same. Marina added more points. More threes. The crowd was starting to sense something historic. You can feel it in an arena when a player is in that kind of zone. The whole building gets quieter and louder at the same time, quieter in the moments between the action, like everyone is holding their breath, and then louder when the ball goes through the net, like everyone is releasing all that held breath at once. By the end of 3 quarters, Marina Mabrey had 39 points. 39 points, and the fourth quarter still to play. Now the math started being done by everyone in the building. 39 points. The WNBA record was 53, the mark set by the towering, dominant Liz Cambage back in July 2018, and then tied by the otherworldly Aya Wilson in August 2023. 2 of the most physically dominant players the women's game had ever seen. A 6'8" Australian center who could score from anywhere and a long, powerful forward who had won multiple MVP awards. That record, 53, felt almost mythological. Could Marina Mabrey get there from 39? She needed 14 more points in 1 quarter. 14 points in 12 minutes of basketball. Was that possible? The answer, in a word, yes. Because she was already averaging nearly 10 points per quarter on this night. She had showed she could score in bunches. And now the whole building, her coaches, her teammates, the fans, everyone watching, was thinking about one number. 53. Except Marina. She still didn't know. She was in the zone, that deep, flowing state of athletic excellence where you're not calculating and thinking and planning. You're just acting. You're just playing. The game slows down. The movements become instinctual. The hand-eye coordination sharpens to something almost superhuman. Athletes call it the zone, the flow state, the space where everything just clicks. And Marina Mabrey was deep inside it. The fourth quarter began. More points. The tempo were now up by a lot. This was turning into a blowout. Normally, in a blowout late in the fourth quarter, the starters come out. The backups get their run. The coach gives the veterans a rest. That's just basketball logic. You protect your players, you don't risk injury when the game is decided. But Sandy Brondello kept Marina in. She knew. She had watched enough basketball to know what was happening. She said afterward, "I've been doing this for quite some time. I've never seen that, even Diana Taurasi, and she could shoot it really well. I mean, to witness that was amazing." Sandy Brondello made a coaching decision that she'd remember for the rest of her career. She kept Marina Mabrey on the floor and gave her a chance to make history. And then came the moment that changed everything. Someone got word to Marina. It was her sister, Michaela Mabrey, sitting on the sideline, the same sister who had spent years competing with Marina, pushing her, making her better. The first competition Marina ever had, leaned in and told her sister where she was. Told her she was 3 points away from tying the WNBA all-time scoring record in a single game. 50 points. She had 50 points. And she needed 3 more. "There's no stat board in our gym," Marina said later. "After you get into a state like that, it's kind of hard to know what you're really doing, but my teammates made it known, so I knew I was doing something good." 50 points. Her first reaction was probably disbelief. And then, in the way that great competitors always respond to information like that, the disbelief became a target. 3 more points. 3. Just 3. The clock was running. The game was winding down. The Sparks were defending harder now, not because the game was close, but because no team in professional sports wants to have history made against them. Nobody wants to be the team that allowed a world record. Their pride was on the line, now, even more than the outcome. Julie Alamand had the ball. She was surveying the floor, the way she always does, seeing things before they happen. Marina Mabrey was moving off screens, getting to her spots, trying to find the right angle. With just under 3 minutes to play, Alamand made the pass. The ball found Marina at the three-point arc. She caught it. She shot it. It went in. 53 points. The building exploded. The crowd at Coca-Cola Coliseum erupted in a standing ovation that shook the rafters. Her teammates mobbed her. The Sparks called a timeout, not to draw up a play or talk strategy, but just to stop the moment, to let it breathe, to acknowledge what had just happened. Because that's what you do when you witness something historic. You stop. The scoreboard now read 53 points for Marina Mabrey. The same 53 that Liz Cambage put up in 2018. The same 53 that Aya Wilson put up in 2023. For the third time in WNBA history, a player had reached that number. And this time it was a 29-year-old guard from New Jersey, a player who had been traded 4 times, who had played in 5 different countries, who had never once made a WNBA All-Star team, tying the all-time record on a random Thursday night in Toronto in the first season of an expansion franchise. The crowd was chanting, but the game wasn't over. There was still time on the clock, about 2 minutes left, and the tantalizing possibility was sitting right there. Could Marina Mabrey break the record? Could she get to 54, 55, 56? Could she be the sole owner of this moment? Could she take the number from 2 to 1? She had 2 more three-point attempts, 2 more chances. She launched both of them. They didn't go in. For the first time all night, the basket didn't cooperate. The zone, the flow, the magical alignment of everything, it had brought her exactly to 53. And there it stopped. Sandy Brondello made the call. She took Marina out of the game with just over a minute to play. The game was decided. The record was tied. There was no reason to keep her out there risking injury, burning her out, running down the clock on empty. The decision was made. The crowd booed. They booed the substitution. They wanted more. They wanted to see if Marina could break it. They were sitting there in that arena, watching what might be the greatest individual scoring performance they would ever see in person, and they wanted more time. They wanted more shots. They wanted to see history made completely, entirely, without an asterisk next to the word tied. And then, almost instantly, the boos turned into something else entirely. The booing melted into cheering, and then into a standing ovation. And then, as the final seconds ticked down, into one of the most remarkable sounds a basketball arena can produce. "We want Mabrey. We want Mabrey. We want Mabrey." The entire building, chanting her name. The clock at 0. The game over. Toronto 125, Los Angeles 97. A blowout, a dominant win, a franchise record point total for the tempo in a single game. And at center court, Marina Mabrey stood with her arms raised above her head. Triumphant, exhausted, overwhelmed. her eyes scanning the crowd, hearing those chants, feeling the love of a city that had adopted her as its own, the city that had bet on her, the city that was now watching her stand at the mountaintop of women's basketball history. And then she walked to the sideline and shared a long, emotional moment with her sister Michaela. The same sister who had spent years beating her on that driveway in Belmar. The same sister who had pushed her to be better, who had made her tough, who had been her first and best competition. Michaela was there when Marina made her first basket as a Notre Dame freshman. Michaela was there when Marina hit that championship three-pointer in the national title game. And Michaela was there on June 25, 2026, in Toronto, when Marina Mabrey tied the greatest individual scoring record in the history of the WNBA. There are moments in sports where everything, all the work, all the sacrifice, all the sleepless nights and brutal practices and lonely hotel rooms in foreign countries, all of it comes together in one perfect, crystalline instant. This was one of those moments. Let's talk about the final line, because it deserves to be examined carefully. Marina Mabrey, 53 points, 17 of 28 from the field, 9 of 18 from three-point range, 10 of 12 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 34 minutes. Now, let's put that in context. The 9 three-pointers matched the WNBA record for three-pointers in a single game, a record that, incredibly, she had also set the previous week in a win over the Connecticut Sun. 2 consecutive games with 9 three-pointers. That had never happened before in WNBA history. She finished the game 60% from the field overall. When you're scoring 53 points, coaches always want to know, was it just volume? Was she just chucking it up 100 times and getting lucky? Was it efficient? The answer: 17 made field goals. 28 attempts. That is elite efficiency for a high-volume scoring night. She was, as her coach Sandy Brondello said, all going in. It wasn't just volume. It was precision. It was artistry. And consider this. Marina had 27 points at halftime. 27 points, and still had the better part of her night ahead of her. She had 19 in the first quarter alone. She now owned the 3 highest-scoring quarter performances in the entire WNBA in the 2026 season. She had scored 21 points in a quarter against the Sun, 18 against the Mystics, and now 19 in the first quarter of this game. Quarter after quarter after quarter, she was doing things that nobody else in the league was doing. Now, let's compare her line to the 2 legends she joined at 53. Liz Cambage in 2018, 53 points, 17 of 22 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3, 15 of 16 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks. Cambage got there in part through her overpowering physicality, a 6'8" center who could simply not be contained when she was near the basket, combined with a surprising three-point shot and devastating free throw drawing ability. She took only 22 shots because she was so efficient and got fouled so much. Aya Wilson in 2023, 53 points, 16 of 23 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, 20 of 21 from the free throw line. Wilson got there primarily through her mid-range brilliance, her ability to draw fouls at a historic rate, and her absolute mastery of every situation on the floor. Marina Mabrey in 2026, 53 points, 17 of 28 from the field, 9 of 18 from 3, 10 of 12 from the free throw line. Marina got there primarily through the three-point shot, 9 of them, combined with efficient scoring inside the arc and solid free throw shooting. Her path to 5-3 was the most three-point dependent of the 3, which is also why her line includes more attempts. 9 threes is an entire different offense unto itself. 3 completely different players. 3 completely different styles. 3 completely different paths to the same impossible number. Liz Cambage, a mountain of a center, a force of nature in the paint. Aya Wilson, a generational talent, possibly the best player of her era, a multiple MVP whose body and skill set exist in a category almost by themselves. Marina Mabrey, a 6'1" guard from New Jersey who grew up shooting threes with her brother and sister, who got drafted 19th, who got traded 4 times, who played basketball in 5 countries, who was never considered the best player on any of her teams, until now. Every time someone asks who the greatest scorer in WNBA history is, the conversation will now include 3 names. And one of them is Marina Mabrey. The reaction that followed the game was what you'd expect when something historically significant happens in sports. The sports world stopped for a moment and looked at Toronto. Social media exploded. Basketball fans who had barely heard of Marina Mabrey were suddenly looking her up, watching highlights, reading about her career. Where had this player been? How was she not already a star? Her coach, Sandy Brondello, was almost at a loss for words. She had coached some of the greatest players in the history of women's basketball, Diana Taurasi, arguably the greatest female basketball player ever, and she was saying, openly and sincerely, that she had never seen anything like what Marina did on this night. I've been doing this for quite some time. I've never seen that, even Diana Taurasi, and she could shoot it really well. I mean, to witness that was amazing. Taurasi. Diana Taurasi. The Phoenix Mercury legend. The player they call the White Mamba. The first player in WNBA history to score 10,000 career points. The greatest scorer in the history of the sport by career totals. And Sandy Brondello, who coached her for years, was saying that she had never seen anyone do what Marina did that night. That quote is going to live forever. Julie Alamand, who finished with 13 points and a career-high 14 assists without a single turnover, became the quiet hero of the night. The best pass in basketball history doesn't make the scoreboard. The assist that set up the record-tying three will be a footnote forever, but to the people who were in that building, to Marina Mabrey, it was everything. Julie literally throws the ball right to my pocket, Marina said. It's actually wild. And then there was the moment with Michaela, the sister, who was there. Marina said, seeing her on the sideline, I just want to be great for my family, especially Mikey. Mikey, the older sister. The first competition. The reason Marina got good at basketball in the first place. The person who made every loss on that driveway sting enough that Marina came back the next day determined to get better. Mikey was watching in person when her little sister tied the all-time WNBA single-game scoring record. In the press conference afterward, Marina was asked about it. And she said something about competitive drive that cuts right to the heart of who she is. Mikey was my first competition. I thought about beating her one-on-one every single day. Seeing her on the sideline, I just want to be great for my family, especially Mikey. That's not a quote from a press conference. That's a window into a soul. That's what great athletes are made of. Not just talent, not just work ethic, but love. Love for the people who helped shape them. Love that gets expressed through excellence on the court. The crowd's reaction told its own story. When Marina came out of the game, when that substitution happened, and the record was tied, and the clock was still running, those fans didn't go home satisfied and quiet. They chanted her name all the way to 0. They wanted more. They wanted the record broken. They wanted the sole ownership, the solo title, the first and only in front of 53 in the record books. And maybe that's going to happen someday. Maybe Marina Mabrey will have another night like this. Another night when Michaela is in the building, when Julie Alamand is dishing dimes from impossible angles, when the basket looks the size of a lake and every shot is going in before it even leaves her hand. Maybe that night will come. But for now, the number is 53, and the record has 3 names on it. Let's zoom out for just a second and appreciate the full scope of what this means. The WNBA was founded in 1997. 29 years of professional women's basketball in America, the best women's basketball league in the world. In all of that time, in all of those games, all those seasons, all those legendary performances, 53 points in a single game has been reached exactly 3 times. 3 times. In 29 years. The first time, it was Liz Cambage, a once-in-a-generation physical specimen who dominated the paint and could score from everywhere on the floor. The second time, it was Aya Wilson, who many people consider the best basketball player alive, the MVP of the modern era, a player who is rewriting the record books every season. And the third time was Marina Mabrey, the 19th pick, the player who got traded 4 times, the player who played in Latvia, Israel, Australia, Italy, and Turkey, the player who had never made an all-star team, the player who, on the verge of turning 30, in her first season with a brand new expansion team in a foreign country, on a night when her sister happened to be watching, decided to have the game of her life. Sports give us these moments. These impossible, improbable, beautiful moments where the story defies all logic. Where the player that nobody expected steps into the spotlight and refuses to leave. Where a career's worth of hard work, sacrifice, and quiet excellence suddenly becomes visible to the entire world in a single, blazing, unforgettable performance. Marina Mabrey had been doing the work her entire life. The driveway battles. The championship runs at Notre Dame. The international seasons in cities and languages she had to learn from scratch. The trades and the fresh starts and the relentless improving year after year. Team after team. And on June 25, 2026, all of that work revealed itself in 34 minutes of basketball. 53 points, 9 threes, a standing ovation, a crowd chanting her name, a sister on the sideline, a franchise record for an expansion team in only their first season, and a place in WNBA history that is permanent, irrevocable, and entirely deserved. But here's the thing that keeps echoing, and this is the part that makes the story not just good, but great. She almost broke it. She was right there. The record, sole ownership, 54 points, the new number, the new record, Marina Mabrey's and nobody else's, was right there in front of her with 2 minutes on the clock. She had 2 more shots, 2 more chances, and they didn't go in. There's something in that incompleteness that makes the whole thing more human, more real. If she had broken the record, if she had gone to 54 or 55 or 56, it would have been clean. Finished. A neat, complete story with no loose threads. But instead, she tied it. She matched the 2 legends who came before her. She joined them. She didn't replace them. And in doing so, she left something unfinished, which means the story isn't over. Marina Mabrey is 29 years old. She is in the best shape of her career. She is playing the best basketball of her career. She is on a team that believes in her completely, with a coach who trusts her, a point guard who will always find her, and a city that already loves her more than she could have imagined. The WNBA record for points in a single game currently stands at 53, held jointly by 3 players. And one of those 3 players is healthy, hungry, and on one of the hottest runs of her life. The next time Michaela Mabrey is in the building watching her little sister play, the entire basketball world might want to pay attention. Because if Marina Mabrey can get into that zone again, that ocean deep, nothing else exists, the basket is the size of a swimming pool zone, the number 53 might not be holding that record for long. I think tonight was just my night from the 3-point line, and from honestly everywhere. It was all going in. Yeah, Marina. It was all going in. And the basketball world is watching now.